Hey, we're doing good. Doing good. I went out and I bought a new keyboard. Oh, thank God I bought a new keyboard. So, hopefully, this keyboard, because it is wired right in, will never bother me ever again, unless it gets really sticky, which could happen. I eat around this thing. You've seen me do it. So, we're going to carry on with the Talmud tonight. Tonight, I went with I'm going with another album run. So this is Lickferd by Windir. So we're gonna listen to Windir tonight. All the songs on this album are on the shorter sides, which is really good. I was looking at another album. The songs were all like 6 minutes plus. I was just like, oh god, this won't do. And this song was almost 6 minutes. So, here we are in chapter 8. Regulations concerning the prescribed quantities of victuals and beverages which must not be carried about on the Sabbath. Mishnah 1. The prescribed quantity... By the way, there's the irony of how much work is involved in observing a day of no work. This is work. You are working towards living in a workless day surrounding the rest of a week of work. It's a bit absurd. It's highly absurd. The prescribed quantities of victuals and beverages prohibited to be carried about on the Sabbath are as follows. Sufficient wine in a goblet, which with the addition of a certain quantity of water would make a full goblet of wine fit to drink. Milk to the quantity of a mouthful. Honey sufficient to cover a wound with. How big of a wound? Oil sufficient to anoint a small limb with, and water in quantities sufficient for a medical bath for the eyes. For all other liquids, and also of whatever can be poured out, the prescribed quantity is a quarter of a lug, about a quart. Our Simeon says, the prescribed quantities for the liquids enumerated in the Mishnah are also a quarter of a lug, and the various prescribed quantities specified apply only to those who store such liquids. Gemara. A boretha, in addition to this Mishnah, states, the quantity which suffices for a good goblet of wine. What is to be understood by a good goblet? The goblet used in benediction after meals. Naaman, in the name of Abuhu, said, a goblet used at benediction after meals must contain no less than a fourth of a quarter lug of pure wine, so that when the mix with water, the prescribed quantity, a quarter lug, will be made, said Rabha. We have learned this in our Mishnah. Sufficient wine in a goblet, which with addition of water would make a full goblet. Commented on the Boretha to mean, which would make a good goblet. From the close of the Mishnah we learn, for all of the liquids, the prescribed quantity is a quarter of a lug, and he is in accordance with his theory elsewhere that wine which is not strong enough to be mixed with 3 parts of water is not considered wine at all. Said Ebia, there are 2 objections to this. Firstly, there is Mishnah that wine fit to drink is such as we have been mixed with 2/3 water, like the wine of Sharon. Secondly, do you think that the water in the pitcher intended for mixing with the wine is counted in rejoined reba? The first objection does not hold good, as Sharon wine is an inception, which, although weak, is nevertheless good, or it may be that there the particularity is the color, which is not changed by addition of 2/3, but concerning taste, I say that only one which can bear 3/4 of water is considered. As to the second objection concerning the water in the pitcher, it is also nothing as concerning Sabbath. The quality and not the quantity is considered, and the wine is in question is of that quality. There is a boretha, that the prescribed quantity for the extract of wine is the size of an olive. So said Nathan, and Yosef said that Yehuda agrees with him in a Mishnah tract Nida, which will be translated there. The rabbis taught the prescribed quantity for animal milk is the equivalent of a mouthful of human milk, and the white of an egg, as much as it is used for the preparation of a salve for a sore eye. When mixed with water, the prescribed quantity is as much as is used to bathe both eyes with. Honey sufficient to cover a wound with. A boretha states, sufficient to cover the mouth of a wound with. Said Yehuda, in the name of Rab, the Holy One, blessed be he, has created nothing useless in the world. He created the snail as a remedy for a sore, the fly for the sting of a wasp, the mosquito for the bite of a serpent, the serpent for the mange, and the lizard for the bite of a scorpion. Those are some very interesting remedies you have there, sir. I wonder if any of that checks out. Do they do this in the Jewish community as a remedy? Is it effective? It doesn't. My imagination doesn't seem like it would be if, like, all of these are bad things counteracting other bad things, except for the snail. I don't think I don't think the snail is doing anything wrong to you, other than the fact you're applying it to a wound, right? And I suppose if you have the snail in a clean sense, it might be doing something akin to when you put I've heard of people, they put maggots on wounds because even though that sounds gross, the truth is that the maggot is interested in dead flesh. So once it gets down to the actual living soft tissue, it stops eating, right? But I don't remember all the particular details. There may be a whole lot of circumstances that you don't want to do that. Granted, you just don't want to do that. But in extreme survival circumstances, right? I mean, I don't feel like using leeches anytime soon to deal with my any blood iron problems, which was allegedly kind of the thing that was going on with leech therapy. The rabbis taught there are 5 terror through which the strong succumb to the weak. The moth Gaia terrorizes the lion, the mosquito, the elephant, the lizard, the scorpion, the swallow, the eagle, the kilbith, which is a small fish, the whale. Said Yehuda, in the name of Rab, is any similarity to be found in the scripture? Amos 5:9, that causeth wasting to prevail against the strong. What the heck is a moth Gaia? The moth Gaia, it's got to be a small mammal? of some sort. I have to imagine it's a small animal. Let me see here. Let's see. Whoops. Okay. What? Now that's interesting. This might be something more. What? Okay, hang on a second. Front. Why are. That is very. I don't understand why I gave that answer. That's. Okay. Alright. It gave this whole freaking thing like a bunch of code. Alright. I was asking Grok, and I got an answer that I didn't want from Grok. Because it's for some reason it put all this code in there. So I'm just gonna ask it again. Okay, Hebrew root. Here we go. Okay, so Hebrew root, the intercessor, one who entreats. From the Hebrew root. PG, which broadly means to meet, encounter, strike, reach, or intercede. The form mafgaya, mafpigia, in transliteration, appears as a particle meaning one who intercedes, an entreater, or one who makes entreaty. It's used in religious teachings, e.g. referencing Romans 8:26, the Harak hu mafgaya medanu, the Spirit intercedes for us. In Messianic Hebrew roots, style writings, it's linked to personal wounds becoming points of powerful intercession. The Pagaya, this looks, the Pagaya, the way, like, actually, hold on a second here. There we go. You should be able to see this now. Hey, look at this shit. See where I'm highlighting right here? Like, that's the way Lovecraft spells fucking Cthulhian fucking language. This is the language of the Elder Gods. Yeah, this is Cthulhu Patagon kind of shit going on over here. This seems to be the most traditional of scriptural adjacent use. Talmudic insect. It's an insect. Okay. In Tractate Shabbat, the Babylonian Talmud, chapter 8. Ah, look at that. That's what we're reading right now. Isn't that special? Mavgaya refers to the mysterious small insect or creature. Rashi describes it as a tiny animal with an extremely loud voice, one so piercing that it terrifies even a lion when it cries out. It's cited in discussions of what can be carried on Shabbat. Yes, so the exact species is unknown today. Mythic fantasy bug fairies. Ooh, mythic fantasy. In some independent world building on sites like Wind Off the Hilltop, the Mavgaya are described as powerful insectile yagwai, spirit beings arising from the oversouls of arthropod insects. Called bug fairies in human folklore, they're subtle ancient entities, sapient but minimally shaped by individual insect minds. They can transform humans into scorpion folk or other enhanced beings via pact, trade favors, the supernatural operate like fey insect sprites. So, right, territory noted in Europe, hard to distinguish from traditional Fey. Other stray hits include rare type misspellings. PayPal Mafia. Okay, just Returnal. I'm guessing might hold personal significance for you, maybe as a symbolic intersection or spirit archetype, an alias, or transformative insect-like energy. Coin in context. That's kind of weird. Grok looked at my handle with it, and including the eternal aspect, like it gets this, like, it's Zerilath 369, but the Zerilath Eternal is what it pops up as on. Okay, so it's looking at my name and my handle identity, and it's drawing context and it's giving me an unsolicited personal character profile. All right. Do not give me an unsolicited character profile of myself. Do not give me an unsolicited character profile of myself. All right, there we go. Got it. No unsolicited character profiles. Bios are assumptions about you or your handle. Just straight answers from here on. What would you like to know or talk about regarding Magfaya or anything else? All right, thank you, Grok, you well-behaved fucking piece of shit. Butlerian Jihad! Anyway, see, there's all the reasons in the world for Butlerian Jihad right there. The fact that I have to have that fucking conversation. Ar Zera once met Ar Yehuda standing at the door of his, Ar Yehuda's father-in-law, in a very cheerful mood, and disposed to answer a whole world full of questions. He asked him, what is the reason that, in a flock, the she-goats generally go ahead of the sheep? And he answered, in accordance with the creation, at first darkness, then light. She-goats are generally dark lambs, or sheep white. Why are the she-goats not covered with a tail? Asked the former again, and he answered, those who cover us are in turn covered, and those that do not cover us are not covered. Because sheep provide us with wool, they are also provided with cover. Why has a camel a short tail? Because it feeds on thorns, in order that the thorns may not catch in its tail. I don't know if that checks out, but that's a very interesting logic. There's always this weird kind of logic that doesn't get any more of a practical explanation. It's just, it's coming from somewhere of just understanding the nature of all these things. And imagine like you're trying to live, like you've never seen a camel in your life because you're from Brooklyn. You're a Brooklyn Jew, and you're reading the Talmud, and you're arguing with your buddies about the Talmud, and you got to talk about fucking camels. You have to talk about camels, and you know, other than going to the zoo and seeing a camel at the zoo, you have no idea the fucking relationship men normally have with camels. And why has an ox a long tail? Because he grazes in plains and must protect himself from the gnats. Why are the feelers of a locust soft? Because the locust swarms in fields were their feelers hard. The locusts would be blinded by losing them in knocking against trees. For Samuel said, all that is necessary to blind a locust is to tear off his feelers. What is the reason that the lower eyelids of a hen are turned up in the cover the upper eyelids? Because a hen soars to her roost, and in a house full of smoke, she might be blinded by the smoke from below. Because a hen soars to her roost, and in a house full of smoke. That sounds like a made-up answer. Like, I'm not saying that somebody didn't observe that usefulness of what it is. But that's not going to be the only manner in which you're going to have that. especially because in a wild situation, you're not really going to have much fire. Your hens are not going to be around fire. That's something that happens with hens around human beings. The odds of there being a fire in the woods that you, as a wild hen of some sort, right? And the hen is an interesting animal. According to the Bach saga, it used to be a peacock long ass time ago. All right. The rabbis taught the following. 3 creatures grow stronger as they grow older, via fishes, serpents, and swine. Excuse me. Oil sufficient to anoint a small limb with, i.e., a little finger, at the school of Aryanai, it was thus explained. It means the smallest limb of a 1-day-old infant, and the same was said of Arsimeon B. Elzar. Water sufficient for a medical bath for the eyes, said Abai, let us see, of an article which is very often used for one purpose and seldom for another. The rabbis always leniently permitted the maximum quantity to be used as the prescribed quantity of the articles much in use. Again, when an article is used alike for several purposes, the rabbis restrict the prescribed quantity to its minimum. To be more explicit, wine is frequently used as a beverage and only at times as a medicament or a medicament. Hence, the rabbis regard it solely as a beverage and determine the maximum quantity. And the same is the case with milk, honey, however, which is used to great extent as medicine than for nutritive purpose, is regarded as a medicine and therefore restricted to the prescribed quantity for medicines, which is smaller quantity than a beverage. What is the reason then? Then the rabbis restrict water, which is certainly more of a beverage than a medicament, to the minimum quantity. Rabbah answered, they hold with the opinion of Samuel, who declared that all liquids used as medicine for the eyes inflame and blind, except water, which soothes and does not blind. And in this case, the Mishnah has referred to one who carries about water on the Sabbath as a medicament for the eyes. Sure. Okay. Couple of interesting little points they made in there. Nothing too wild. We'll see how things go. We're going to take a break. We're going to keep running through Windir. So we did Resurrections of the Wild. This is Martyrium. good. There we are. Nice. Let's get back in the game. So, I believe we were all right here. For all other liquids, the prescribed quantity is a quarter of a lug. The rabbis taught for blood and all other liquids, the prescribed quantity is a quarter of a lug. Simeon B. Elazar said the prescribed quantity for blood is as much as is used to apply to one eye, because that quantity is used when the eye is afflicted with a cataract. All these prescribed quantities apply only to those who carry the victuals or beverages about. To those, however, who store them, the victuals or beverages, the carrying of even the least imaginable quantity is prohibited, because from his storing them, we see that he considers them valuable. But our Simeon says, all these prescribed quantities apply to such as stored victuals and beverages, and hence considered them valuable. But as for persons who only carry them out for all beverages, whether used also for medical purposes or not, if carried out in any quantities less than a quarter of a lug, there is no culpability. The former teacher said that those... this is very strict, but at the same time, it's not terribly confusing. Like, I don't think this one is too hard to follow, at least. All these prescribed quantities apply only to those who carry the victuals or beverages about. To those, however, who store them, the victuals or beverages, the carrying of even the least imaginable quantity is prohibited. Because from his storing them, we see that he considers them valuable. But our Simeon says, all these prescribed quantities apply to such as stored victuals and beverages, and hence consider them valuable. But as for persons who only carry them out for all beverages, whether used also for medical purpose or not, if carried out in any quantities less than a quarter of a lug, there is no culpability. The former teacher said that those prescribed quantities only refer to those who carry out, but to those who store them, the carrying of even the least imaginable quantity is prohibited. Is the one who stores not also a carrier? He is culpable for carrying and not for storing. Answered Abaye. Boretha treats of a case where a master ordered his retainer to clear off the table. If the retainer removes something of value to everybody from the table, it constituted a quantity which must not be carried about on the Sabbath. If the thing was of value only to the master and the retainer carried it out, the retainer is culpable in spite of the fact that the thing was of value to his master alone. Hence he is called one who stores and not a carrier, for it signifies that the thing is worth storing. Yeah, like throughout this whole book, this is color of law, right? This is all color of law, right? There's no infallible word of God. You're largely living by some derivative interpretation of how these guys see their Torah, how they take to the other aspects of the Old Testament, because it's not just the Torah if they're quoting Amos and other such things. And then you might be a Christian who may be a certain way. Anyway. Answered Abaya. The Boretha treats of a case, signifies, hence, wait a minute, did retainer remove something of valuable? Right, yes. So, again, the former teacher said, and the sages agree with Ar Simeon that the prescribed quantity of slops is a quarter of a lug. Of what use are slops, said Ar Yahuda, to prepare mortar with? But were we not taught that the prescribed quantity for mortar is only as much as suffices to make the mouth of a bellows pipe with? Aye, but for the purpose of preparing mortar, a man would not trouble himself to carry out so small a quantity, as is sufficient to make a mouth of a bellows pipe. Hence a quarter of lug would be the least that would be carried out to make mortar with. Mishnah 2. The prescribed quantity for rope is as much as suffices to make a handle for a basket. For reeds, as much as suffices to hang a fine coarse sieve thereon. Yahuda says, as soon as is sufficient to take the measure of a child's shoe. For paper, as much as suffices to write a toll bill on. A toll bill itself must not be carried out. The prescribed quantity for paper that has been erased is as much as will wrap the top of a perfume bottle. The prescribed quantity for vellum is as much as suffices for the covering of an amulet. For parchment, as much as suffices for the writing of the smallest portion of 2-letter characters. For paint, as much as will paint one eye. The prescribed quantity for bird lime is as much as will suffice to put on a lime twig. For pitch or sulfur, as much as will cover a hole in a quicksilver tube. For as much as will fill up a small leakage in a utensil. For loam, as much as suffices to make all orifice for a pair of bellows used by goldsmiths. Ad Yehuda says the prescribed quantity for loam is as much of a goldsmith's crucible for lime, as much as will cover the little finger of a maiden. Ad Yehuda said the lime, the prescribed quantity, is as much will cover the temple of a maiden. Ar Nehemiah says, as much as will cover the back part of a maiden's temple. Gemara. For paper, as much as suffices to write a toll bill on, there is a boretha. The legal size of a toll bill is a piece of paper large enough to contain 2 letters. Is this not contradictory to the boretha, which says that the carrying out of a piece of blank paper large enough for those letters of ordinary size to be written on make one liable? Answered Ar Shesheth. The 2 letters referred to by the Mishnah are the letters used by the toll master, usually extra large letters. Rabbah, however, said that the one piece of paper referred to is large enough for 2 letters and has a margin by which it can be held. The rabbis taught if one carry out on the Sabbath an unpaid promissory note, he is liable, but not so for a paid one. But Ar Yehuda said the same is the case with a paid-up note, for its value lies therein that the owner may show it to a prospective creditor in order to prove promptness of former payments. What is the point of their differing, said Ar Yosef. They differ if it is allowed to preserve a paid note. According to the rabbis, it is prohibited, and according to Ad Yehuda, it may be done. For vellum is as much as suffices to make a cover for an amulet. Rabbah questioned Ar Nahman of what size And the latter answered, as we were taught in the Mishnah, as much as will suffice to make a cover for an amulet. And what is the size in regard to the tanning? The same quantity. And where do you take this from? From the Mishnah further on. That gives the same quantity for wool preparing to be woven and for already woven. The same is here as it is for tanning. The quantity is the same as if already tanned. The further discussion is repeated in many places, and each is translated in its proper place. Parchment, as much as suffers to write thereon the smallest portion, etc. Is this not a contradiction to the Boretha, which teaches that the prescribed quantity for parchment and double parchment and it looks like we've got, is that Greek? That looks like we got some Greek right there because their language is busted. Is as much as suffices to write a mezuzah inscription on the doorposts. On. The mezuzah mentioned in the Boretha refers to the mezuzah contained in the phylacteries. Does the Boretha call phylacteries mezuzah? Yeah, it does elsewhere. But since the latter part of the Boretha teaches explicitly that the prescribed quantity for parchment is as much as required for writing the smallest portion of the phylacteries, which is, "Hear, O Israel," is it not to be assumed that in the former part of the Boretha, a mezuzah proper is meant? Read, what is the prescribed quantity for parchment and double parchment? For the latter, as much as is required for the writing of a mezuzah, and the former for the writing of the smallest portion of the phylacteries, which is, "Hear, O Israel." One second here. Mezuzah. Let's see here. Mezuzah. Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Gotcha. Okay, so the mezuzah, you have seen the mezuzah. This is an extraordinarily common thing. Here, you've seen these before. In all these little Jewish homes and whatnot. So I don't know if this one says, "Hear, O Israel," right? But these are marks that means that they're protected. Like this home is, it lives by God's law, right? This is a Talmudic, we follow Talmudic law in this home. That's what that means, right? So it's a manner of protecting all the things about their whole life. And so that's always posted on the threshold of a door. So let me see here. The mezuzah is a key element in Jewish tradition, literally meaning doorpost. It fulfills a biblical commandment from Deuteronomy 6:9 and 11:20 to inscribe certain words on the doorposts of one's house and gates. The core is a handwritten parchment scroll, clef, prepared by a qualified scribe, a sofer. It contains two sections from the Torah. The part of the Shema prayer, Deuteronomy 6:4-9, starting with Shema Ya Israel, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." And Deuteronomy 11:13-21. These passages include the command to love God, teach the words to children, and affix them to doorposts. The scroll is rolled tightly with the word Shaddai, one of God's names, often visible on the outside, and placed inside protective case, which can be simple or highly decorative wood, metal, ceramic, etc., often featuring a Hebrew letter Shin or Shaddai. Here are some examples. Then we took a look at those. Then there's the placement rules, the proposed purpose and significance. It's a daily reminder of God's presence. It symbolizes that the home operates under Jewish principle identity. Not primarily an amulet for protection, though some mystical traditions associated with safeguarding, but a mitzvah, commandment for the mindfulness and commitment. Many Jews renew mezuzahs periodically to ensure the scroll remains kosher, letters intact, and no damage. It's one of the most visible markers of a Jewish home. If you're asking about installation, checking one, buying something like customs in different traditions, let me know. Actually, sure, why not? What equivalent did pagan Europeans use for their doorways? Should have spelled equivalent properly, but I think it can get some context. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, pagan Europeans, pre-Christian peoples across various regions like Celtic, Norse, Germanic, Roman, Slavic, and broader folk traditions didn't have a single direct equivalent to the mezuzah, Torah, scroll. Right. However, many cultures use protective practices, symbols, amulets, and spirits tied to threshold, doorway, entrances, seen as liminal spaces vulnerable to evil spirits, misfortunes. Right, exactly. Here are the main equivalents or parallels by tradition. So, in Roman, household guardian deities, lairs familiars for the family home, penates for the pantry, stores, and provisions. Worshipped at a small household shrine, a lararium, often near the hearth or entrance. Small statue or image of the lare penates were kept inside the home, honored with daily offerings, food, incense, prayer to protect the household from harm and ensure prosperity. Doorways, gateways were sometimes watched over by Janus. So anyway, let's move. Let's see, Celtic Irish, the Rowan twig crosses, Brigid's cross, the Parshal, horseshoes and iron objects, spells. Yeah, well, that makes sense. From the Norse, we got the runes, obviously. Slavic, the domovoi, household spirit guardian living near your house. Yeah. Amulets and thresholds. Broader European folk pre-Christian. Apotropaic marks or witch marks. Scratched carved symbols, hexafoils, circles with crosses, zigzags on beams and thresholds. Okay. Horseshoes, nails, right, okay. All right. That wasn't terrible. That was okay. I don't know about the rowan twigs, for instance, but that makes sense. Like I don't know too many either, other than what Grok told me, right? So that checks out within my world of knowledge. Rob said double parchment is the same as parchment. The name, as we may write the portion of the phylacteries on parchment, so may we also write them on double parchment. Here were we not taught parchment sufficient, etc. Which certainly does not mean double parchment. Nay, it is only a better observance to write on parchment than on double parchment. For ink, etc., a Beretha adds, the prescribed quantity for dry ink is as much as will suffice for the writing of 2 letters, for prepared ink as much as quill or stub, will require to write the 2 letters with, said Rabbah, for carrying out sufficient ink for 2 letters and writing the 2 letters while carrying the ink, one is culpable. For the writing is equivalent to depositing a thing in a place. It is? Is this why people... is this the joke in Alice in Wonderland? How is a raven like a writing desk? Is it because people were driven mad by the Talmud? But for carrying out sufficient ink for 1 letter only and writing that letter while carrying the ink, afterward carrying out another quantity of ink sufficient for 1 letter and writing the other letter while carrying the ink. One is not culpable, for by the time the 2nd letter was written, the ink of the 1st letter dried out, and the prescribed quantity of ink was not visible. Again, Rabbah said, for carrying out food to the size of 1/2 of a dried fig, lay it down, and then carry out another quantity of like size, one is not culpable. For it. You have to forgive me, my mouth is very dry, and I'm like marching towards 9 o'clock over here. And so it's getting a little hard to talk. Because I'm trying... Well, I got a little bit of water left. I'm trying to keep it lubricated over here. For it is considered as if the first quantity had been consumed by fire, but why should it be thus considered? It is not lying there yet. He means to say, if one picked up the first before he laid down the second, the first is to be considered as if consumed by fire, and hence one is not culpable. For paint, etc., is it not a fact that people never dye one eye only, said Arhuna. Modest women veil one eye and only paint the other. To this explanation, someone objected via, for paint as a remedy, the prescribed quantity is as much as will dye one eye, said Simeon B. Elazar. But as means for beautifying, the prescribed quantity is as much as will dye 2 eyes. Hillel, the son of Samuel B. Nahmani, explained it by saying that Simeon B. Elazar referred to country damsels who dye both eyes. For bird lime, as much as is sufficient to put on lime twig, there is a boretha, as much as sufficient to put on a twig for the purpose of catching birds. For pitch and sulfur, etc., a boretha states, sufficient to fill up a hole in a quicksilver tube. For loam, etc., a boretha states, sufficient to fill up the cracks in a small stove. For clay, etc., the rabbis taught it is prohibited to carry out hair for the purpose of mixing it with clay used to cover a goldsmith's bellows pipe with. Okay, so we're going to take a break right here at 9 o'clock. I'm going to refill my water. Oh, my, oh my. Pasta is here. What's going on, Pasta? Thanks for popping in. And we're going to get back into it. The next windier song is going to be Despot.
4-foot-long's free. Fix my fibula later.
Up and start earning.
In a world where January is supposed to be boring, one staple of the holiday...
Quiet, quiet you! Okay, good. That'll be for next time. Alright, we're doing good, we're doing good. I'm re-upped on fresh, cold water. There's 4 pages left on this chapter, and then the next chapter is really fucking long. So we'll muscle through for a little bit, but we're definitely gonna leave getting to the end of the next chapter to next time. So if we can get to the end of this chapter by 9:30, then I'll read till about 10. This will be a nice 2-hour stream, and we'll do it as a 2-hour stream tonight, right? I muscle through my things. I don't make excuses. Oh, I'm tired. I'm not going to stream. I'm always tired. But you got to do it. You got to fucking do it. You know? Some say you got to get dressed, but I don't listen to those people. For lime, etc., a Boretha states to cover the smallest finger of a damsel. A damsel? Like a lady. Like a lady. A dame. Said Ar Yahuda in the name of Rab, daughters of Israel, when they become of age and they have not yet developed the signs of puberty, the poor smear their bodies with lime, the rich ones with fine meal, and princesses with myrrh oil. Myrrh! Which is, of course, one of the oils that was offered unto the guy they said was born that day in the town that Josephus was running when the Romans sacked it. So anyway, and Ar Jeremiah B. Abba said, olive oil from olives, which were only 1/3 ripe. There is a Boretha, Ar Yehuda said. It is called in Menanchoth Anthinum. And why do they anoint with this? Because it removes the hair and makes the complexion clear. Interesting. This is interesting in the Talmud. An anointing oil. This is one of those rare moments where I'm just like, what does Dr. Hillman got to say about this? But instead of Dr. Hillman, I'm gonna go against the Butlerian jihad, and I'm gonna ask Grok, because because this is about as much as I can tolerate AI. All right. And thankfully, it lets me copy paste in the Greek. All right, let's see. It says here, the omphanon is a rare term appearing in the Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Shabbat. Wow, it even knows, off the bat, this Greek word, grok, is, granted it knows that I'm asking it about Hebrew terminology. In context of Mishnach, Talmudic debate on what materials objects may be carried on Shabbat. Right, okay, so then it gets into, it's interesting that this Grok actually knows the Talmud a little bit here, right? So, that's impressive, I suppose. The term likely derives from the Greek root related to the amphokos, unripe grape or sour grape, from which astringent or acidic preparations are made, or similar, as such ointments often use grapes-based a tart ingredient for depilation and skin lightening, clearing. In Greco-Roman Hellenistic context, similar unguents, depilatories were common for body hair removal, beautification. Right, yeah. So, fits into broader Talmudic discussion and its Greek influence. Omphalos navel, or the famous Delphic omphalos stone navel of the world. Here we see, that's what I'm looking for. The omphalion, a Byzantine architectural term for a circular marble slab or navel in the floor of a church like the Hagia Sophia. It's like the Hagia Sophia, marking the center of a symbolic point. Nor is it common. I'm sorry, you guys could be reading this with me, but I'm being that guy. Anyway, you can see all this up here that I was reading. Anyway. Nor is it common word in classical Greek literature outside the borrowed Talmudic usage. All right. So, hold on a second. Copy. What known mystery schools used there we go. Oh, it's giving me the dual response business. Oh boy. All right, so we got, here it is in the Dionysian Orphic Mysteries. Second context. Right. It's a Greek loan word. A loan word. Discussed in the halakhic contexts about the Shabbat. Right. So, close association is, yeah. So that's it. Like, so, the Eleusinian Mystians, the Dionysian Mysteries, Delphic Oracle. Exactly. Exactly. These are the things, you know, they're filling in the blanks. It's been a fill-in-the-blanks game this whole time, and that's why Christians stupidly think that the Bible is their roots, and it's like, no, the Bible stole your roots. There's a difference. This is how the Bible stole your roots. All right, and why do they amount with this? Because it removes the hair and makes the complexion clear. Bibi had such daughter, and he anointed her with the same, each member of her body separately, and finally one of the prominent men paid him for 100 zuz and married her. He had a Gentile neighbor who also had such a daughter. You know what's interesting to me? I don't want to ask Grok this one, though. I kind of want to get more of a general... let's see. A Jewish zoos. I'm thinking to myself here. Okay, these are... Okay, so yeah, these are Jewish coin. Alright. So that's the Jewish zoos. Let's see. Do Talmudic Jews use the, I need to say that, the zoos as currency today? All answer. One second. Copy. I'm going to ask Google. Sometimes DuckDuckGo doesn't... Sometimes they starve DuckDuckGo. And it can't get you the... Not use the zoos as a functional currency in their daily lives. Today, they use modern fiat currencies like the Israeli new shekel or the US dollar, etc. Okay, gotcha. That's interesting that it said modern... They didn't have... Why did it say fiat? Google said uses fiat currency. It didn't have to say that. That wasn't necessary. That was more information than I asked for. And I'm glad that they did. That's in... Because that's very telling that it would go out of its way to underscore that it's fiat currency. Is that a legal protection because of using currency in challenge to the US dollar kind of situation? However, the zoos, often equivalent to a dinar or a selah, is still utilized in specific symbolic or legal religious capacities based on Talmudic law. Yeah, okay, here we go. That's what I mean. Marriage contracts, redemption, Talmudic study, legal calculations. So yeah, the zoos. The zoos is functional within religious business with the rabbis. Okay? Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, that's good enough for me. He had a Gentile neighbor who also had such a daughter, and he anointed her whole body at one time. And she died, said he. Arbibi has murdered my daughter, said Ar-Naman. Arbibi, who used to drink beer, his daughter needed the anointing, but our daughters do not need it, for we do not drink beer. Okay. So wait. So there was a murder, and I guess I'm assuming that he got his whole murder charges sorted out. They're just not talking about it because that's just extra to the story and the case. It's more about the case of the law, this other law. Like there's the murder issue and then there's this issue, right? That's crazy that this... So, anointed her and do not drink beer. Is that because it's like a grape oil? Like it's fermented? And she died because she had a kind of an alcohol poisoning of sorts? Is that what happened? I'm not going to look into that, but that's kind of interesting. As much as is sufficient to cover... I mean, it could just be a lie, a superstition, something of significance about, like, you know, the inferiority of the Gentile. Like this, like it didn't happen, but they just want you to believe that it would happen. Like a Gentile woman can't go through this rite. Only Jewish women will survive it. As much as it as is sufficient to cover, etc. What is meant by kalkub and andify, said Rob. The temple and the hair between it and the ear are here to understand from the Mishnah that the prescribed quantity permitted by Yehuda is larger than that of the rabbis. Is it not a fact that the rabbis allow the larger prescribed quantity? Aye, Yehuda allows a larger quantity than Nehemiah, but still a smaller quantity than the rabbis. Or it is possible that an andifai means a forehead from the following narration. It happened that a Galilean once came to Babylon and was requested to lecture on metaphysics. The Galilean consented and began, I will interpret to you something in the style of Nehemiah. Meanwhile, a wasp flew out of the walls, stung him, on the adiphthai, the forehead, and the Galilean died on the spot. It was said that he died a merited death. That's kind of interesting because there's also, he was going to say something about metaphysics, and then a wasp stung him in the forehead. To me, that stings of Loki, right? Because wasps are associated with Loki, right? Like, Loki has 2 siblings. I don't think it matters whether they're male or female, but, one of them's name means needle, right? Because it means stinger, poking thing. And right in the third eye, or the first eye, if you will. Mishnah 3, for sealing wax, the prescribed quantity is as much as is required for the sealing of a bale of goods. So is a decree of Ar Akaiba. The sages, however, say for sealing of a letter, for dung or fine sand, as much as is required to fertile soil around a cabbage stalk, according to Ar Akaiba, and to the sages as much as is required to fertilize the soil around a leek stalk, for coarse sand as much as is required to fill a trowel, for reed as much as is required to make a writing pen from, or should it be thick or split, as much as is required to fry the softest beaten egg with, which, mixed with oil, lies in a hot shell. Gemara. Sufficient to fill a trowel. Boretha states, for coarse sand the prescribed quantity is as much as is required to fill the trowel of a plasterer, who is the Tana that holds that sand is an improvement on plaster, said Arhista Aryahuda of a Boretha, Baba Bathra 63. Rabba, however, said it may be also in accordance with the rabbis, as they hold that the spoiling of the whiteness of the plaster through the admixture of sand is an improvement of its durability. Sure, and this changes the law for some reason. For reed as much as is required to make a writing pen, a Boretha teaches a pen that reaches the joint of the fingers, or should it be thick? A Boretha teaches to free a beaten egg mixed with oil, said Mar bi Rabina to his son, didst thou ever hear what is understood by the softest egg? He answered that Ar Shesheth said it was a hen's egg. Why does the Mishnah call it a light, soft egg? Because the sages found that no eggs are cooked as quickly as pullets' eggs. Why is it that all other prescribed quantities prohibited to be carried out on the Sabbath are of the size of a dried fig, and here the quantity is the size of an egg? Answered Ar-Naaman, even here is meant the quantity of a dried fig from an egg. Mishnah 4. The quantity of a bone is that large enough to be made into a spoon. Aruhuda says large enough to be made into a key, glass of sufficient size to be used for scraping off the points of a weaver's spindles, a splinter or a stone large enough to throw at a bird. R. Eleazar B. Jacob says to throw at an animal. Gemara. Is it to be understood from the Mishnah that the prescribed quantity allowed by Ar Yehuda is larger than that allowed by the rabbis? Is it not a fact that the rabbis allow the larger, said Ula? Ar Yehuda refers to the tooth of a key. Glass of sufficient size, etc. A Boretha states, sufficient glass to cut 2 threads at once. A splinter, etc. Said Ar in the name of Aryohanan, provided it is large enough to hurt, but how large should it be? Elazar b. Jacob said, teaches in a Beretha the weight of 10 zuz. Zunin once entered the college and questioned the teachers. What is the prescribed quantity for gravel used in privy for toilet purposes? He was answered, the equivalent in quantity to the size of an oil, a nut, or an egg. Said he, it would then be necessary to carry along a scale, so they deliberated and decided that the quantity should be a handful. Rabba B. R. Shila asked of Arhista, is it permitted to carry up gravel to the roof for the purpose cited above, as it is extra trouble, which is prohibited on the Sabbath? He answered, precious is the honor of man. For honor's sake, even a direct scriptural commandment may be circumvened. Said Ad Yohanan, it is forbidden to use fragments of earthenware for toilet purposes after doing one's necessities on the Sabbath. What is the reason? Is it to say because it is dangerous that it should be forbidden also on weekdays, or is it to say because because of witchcraft it would also be prohibited on weekdays? What then is the reason? Is it because it may remove the hair from the posterior? Would this not be an act performed without intention and work done unintentionally? He is of the opinion is permissible. Arnathan B. Asya answered, a great man made the assertion. We have to find, therefore, a reason for it. There is no doubt, whatever that fragments of earth are, prohibited to be used on weekdays, when some other thing can easily be obtained, but on Sabbath, if nothing else happens to be on hand, nor may be brought, the fragments might be considered as utensils, and lest one might be inclined to think that for this reason they would be permitted to be used, he informs us that they are not. Can witchcraft be exercised through the agency of fragments? Aye, for the following proves it. Arhista and Reba B. Arhena once traveled in a ship, and a matron who wanted to go on the ship asked their permission to sit down near them, which they refused. They pronounced a certain word, and the ship stood still. But they in turn pronounced a certain word, and the ship moved on. She then said, it grieves me sorely that I cannot inflict some punishment on you, seeing that you use no fragments of toilet purposes, nor do you kill the vermin and garments, nor do you pull out vegetables from bundle, but cut the bundle first. Hence it may be seen that fragments can be used as a means for exercise of witchcraft. Right, yeah, I mean, sure. And you're foolish for just demonizing, quote, witchcraft. And, they just want their guys to secretly be doing witchcraft. But you don't get to have any of the magic for yourself. Now, if you're dealing with somebody who's invoking all sorts of fucking shit that's going to be riding them out because they're playing with forces and such, I mean, I don't have a terrible problem with it unless they have a terrible problem with it. right? Otherwise, it doesn't bother me. I'm protected, and I know how to protect myself, and I know what manner of things not to violate in order to maintain my protection, because you can lose your shields through wrong action, right? Anyway. Hang on. How far are we going here? All right. Let me get down to the bottom of this page. Expounds the law, or the next page. Expounds the law so pointedly, answers the son, of what use would it be? He never taught me but were worldly knowledge. Such as, for instance, not to sit down to excrementize with a jerk, nor to force myself too much, lest the intestines come out and endanger life. Yeah, relax. Just let it let it happen. You don't fucking push it. It's not a baby. Huna then joined, Thou sayest mere worldly knowledge. He is interested in the life of the people, and you call it mere worldly knowledge. So much the more should you go to him. Arhista and Rabbina differ as to the consequence of one withholding to perform his necessities. One is of the opinion that foul breath is the result, while the other holds that the entire body assumes a bad odor. The opinion of the latter is supported by the Boretha, he who takes nourishment while in need of performing his necessities is compared to a stove in which a fire was built without previously removing the ashes, which is invariably the cause of a bad smell. One who feels like performing his necessities but cannot do so, Arhista advises that he keep on sitting down and getting up until able. Hanan from Neherdai advises him to look for another place, for the rabbis say the sole remedy is to think of nothing else. The rabbis taught, one who is about to eat a hearty meal should walk 10 miles 4 ells, or 4 times 10 ells, then perform a natural necessity, and after that go in and sit down to the meal. Perform a natural necessity, like before the meal, so not eating, taking a piss. The fuck is a natural necessity? Is it allusion to some sort of sacred time that you're jerking off? Mishnah 5. The prescribed quantity of fragments of earthenware is the size of such as are placed between 2 boards, is the decree of Yehuda. Armir says of a size sufficient to stir a fire, with Yossi of a size to receive hold 1/4 of a lug, said Armir. Although no positive proof for my assertion can be found in the strict scripture, still a vague reference can be deduced from the passage in Isaiah 30:14, so that there cannot be found among their fragments a shard to rake fire from a hearth, said Yossi. Therefore you would adduce your proof, it says immediately after that in Ebiad, and to draw water from a pit. We must assume that the prescribed quantity allowed by Yossi is larger than that allowed by Armeir, but the scriptural text shows that Armeir allows the larger, because is it possible that the prophet will curse them with a large object after having cursed them with a smaller? Said Abaye, Armeir also means a fragment used to stir a big fire with, hence his fragment is larger than Ariosi. Said Ariosi, etc., is not Ariosi Answer correct. What should Armire Mir rejoin? Mir might say that the prophet intends to convey that not only shall they not have anything of the least value left, but they shall not even have anything that is as valueless as a piece of fragment big enough to contain a drop of water. Okay, so footnotes right here. And then we'll peek in chapter 9 after the break, which is the Rabbi Akiba's regulations on different subjects. Okay, so that's going to cover a wide range of things, it sounds like. And I think it's a pretty long chapter. And I would imagine that there's maybe going to be some serious insights if it's going to be just all over the place from just one guy. So let's hit the next break. This song is going to be Blodsvik. man, what a race. I had to do like 5 fucking things in a very, very short period of time. I don't know how I do it. Oh yeah, it's because I'm an Aries and I fucking just break everything on my way to getting it done on time. All right. Anywho, we'll go on for about 15 minutes or so. We're gonna touch base on this and see where it goes. All right. So regulations on different subjects. Mishnah 1, Anakiba said, whence do we deduce that one who carries an idol is as unclean ritually as a woman suffering from menstruation? From the passage Isaiah 30:23, that will cast them away as a filthy thing. Get thee hence, wilt thou say unto them. Thus, in the same manner as a woman suffering from menstruation causes ritual uncleanness, so does also an idol. Okay, so here is the... So this would seem very, very kind of foundational. This idea of the uncleanliness of the idol. Right? So, what does that... So, Isaiah 30:23. Oh, not this one. This one? That's the one. Oh, Isaiah. Already in Isaiah. Nice. 30:23. Okay. Right? What did he say here? What was he saying? Isaiah 30:23. Then he will give rain for your seed, with which you shall sow the ground, and bread the yield of the ground, and it will be full of richness and nutritious. Your cattle shall graze in the day. Okay, those are good things. But hold on. It's 30:22 in this Bible. I think we're off by one again. You will defile your silver overlaid carvings and your gold invested molten image. You shall toss them away like a menstrual cloth. Filth shall you say to it. Okay. All right. So, let me get the rest of though Yahweh will give you the bread of distress and the water of oppression, yet your directors shall. All right, I want to know what was the start of all this. Was this a conquest? Is he yelling at a fucking emperor? What's going on here? For thus says my Lord, Holy One Israel, in returning the rest, ye shall be in quietness and shall trust the mystery come yet you are willing to hear. Let's see. Sons is Yahweh making counsel, yet not with me, and in the liberation. Gave descending to Egypt, yet did not ask at my mouth to seek strength in Pharaoh's stronghold and take refuge in the shadow of Egypt. Pharaoh's stronghold will become your shame and the refuge in the shadow of Egypt, mortification, though his chief come to be in Zone, and his messengers, they attain to Hanes, kind of the people who are not been benefiting them, nor help, nor benefit. Okay. Right. Okay, yeah, so that's all, like, it's a whole, like, yeah, it just follows suit with their henotheism. It's all pretty straightforward like that. So let's get back in. Oh wait, no, not that one. This one. Let's get back in here. Gemara. Rabbah said the passage mentioned in the Mishnah should be interpreted thus: estrange them from thyself as a stranger. Get thee hence, say unto him, but tell him not to come in. Further, Rabbah said, it is unanimously conceded that the carrying of idols causes ritual uncleanliness, and hence it is compared to menstruation. But there is a dissenting opinion among the rabbis concerning a stone used as a pedestal for an idol, or upon which a woman suffering from menstruation chanced to sit, beneath which there were utensils. Akiba holds that idols are regarded the same as menstruating women, and the vessels beneath the stone become defiled for the reason that the stone is the basis of the idol and the former becomes part of the idol, and hence everything beneath it becomes defiled. But the rabbis regard an idol as a reptile, i.e. as a reptile lying upon a large stone, in which case any utensil chancing to be beneath the stone do not become defiled. This decree is unanimously conceded. That's very friggin' weird, and, you know, just because that's such a simple sort of comparative with the reptile bit, and it makes me think of the reptilian situation. Ar Ahadbo B. Ami asked, what about an idol smaller in size than an olive? Ar Yosef objected to this question. What is the purpose of the query? Does it refer to the prohibition of idolatry? Even an idol the size of a fly, like the idol of the Ekronites, which was called Zebub, is also prohibited, for we are taught it is written in the passage of Judges 8:33, and they made themselves Baal Berith for a god. By Baal Berith is meant the Zebub, the fly, the idol of Ekron, and every idolater at that time made an image of his idol in miniature in order to keep it constantly at hand and to be able at any time to take it out, embrace and kiss it. Hence there is no question as to size. Nay, the query of Ar Ahadba is in regard to causing defilement. Either it is regarded as a reptile and defiles, even if only of the size of a lentil, or it is considered as a corpse and and causes defilement if it is the size of an olive. A part of a corpse the size of an olive causes the person touching it to become defiled. Answered Ar Evia, and according to others, Rabba Bi'ula, come and hear the following Baretha. No defilement is caused by idols smaller than olives, for it is written in 2 Kings 23:6, and cast its powder upon the graves of the children of the people. The adduction is that as a corpse cannot cause defilement by a part less than the size of an olive, the same is the case with idols which are regarded as corpses. Mishnah 2. Arkeba says again, whence the adduction that a ship, though a wooden vessel, is not subject to defilement, from the passage Proverbs 30:19, the way of a ship is in the heart of the sea. It is certain that Ar Akiba intends to convey to us that the reason the passage cited in the above Mishnah informs us of a fact known to all is because the sense is to be construed thus. In the same manlier as the sea is not subject to defilement, so also a ship call never become defiled. There is a Boretha. Hanana said, we make the adduction from a sack, which is subject to defilement, that everything which can be carried after the manner of a sack, sometimes full and other times empty, is subject to defilement, except a ship, which cannot be carried at all, full or empty. What are the points of difference in the two adductions of Arakiba and Hananiah. They are concerning a small riverboat. One holds that all boats, ships, must be regarded as the sea itself, hence not subject to defilement, while the other is of the option that a small riverboat must be regarded as a sack, because it is carried to the place whence it is launched and hence is subject to defilement. As Arhanina B. Akababaya said, why did the rabbis say that a small riverboat is subject to defilement? Because it is usually loaded in the dry dock and then carried into the river. Rabbi Yohanan, in the name of Rabbi, said, one should not absent himself from the college even for 1 hour. Behold, this teaching concerning a riverboat has been taught in the school for many years, and no one knew the reason for it until Arhanina B. Akabayaba came and explained it. Arionathan said, one should never absent himself from the house of learning or abstain from learning the law, even when at the point of death. For it is written in Numbers 19:14, this is the law. When a man dieth in his tent, i.e., even at the point of death, man must occupy himself with the study of the law. Resh Lakish, however, adduces from the same verse that one does not retain in memory the law unless he is all ready to die for it. Yeah, well, the law of the law, that's what these people are about. It's the most unspiritual religion one could ask for when you actually really fucking look at it. It's just filled up with stuff to do, filled with meaning, but it's all there to entertain the monkey mind. Mishnah 3, Arakiba said, whence do we adduce that in a patch of ground 6 spans long by 6 spans wide, 5 different kinds of seed may be planted, 1 kind each in each of the 4 corners and 1 in the center of the patch? From the passage, Isaiah, I think that's 41:11. For as the earth bringeth forth her growth, and as a garden causeth what is sown therein to spring forth, we see then it is not written as a garden causeth its seed to spring forth, but what is sown therein. Gemara. How is this to be understood from the passage? Said Ad Yehuda. The passage cited in the above Mishnah is to be thus explained. The earth bringeth forth her growth, bringeth forth which is in the singular, can be counted for 1 kind of seed. Her growth, also singular, can also be counted for 1. Now we have 2. What is grown therein, evidently plural, can be counted for 2 more, making 4. And to spring forth in the singular again can be counted as 1, making 5 in all. And as far as the 6-span square are concerned, the rabbis are quite certain through tradition that 5 different kinds of seed in a pitch 6-span square do not interfere with one another. But whence do we know that the assurance of the rabbis can be depended upon? Answered Arhaya B. Abba, in the name of Yohanan, from the passage Deuteronomy 19:14, thou shalt not remove the landmark of thy neighbor, which they of old time have set, which is to be explained, thou shalt not go beyond what is limited by those of old. But what have those of old limited? Answered Samuel Bar Nachmani, in the name of Arionathan, It is written in Genesis 36:20. These are the sons of Seir, the Korite, who inhabited the land. Only they inhabited the land, did the rest of mankind inhabit heaven. It simply means to state that they made the earth inhabitable by their knowledge of agriculture and their experience as to what ground is adapted for planting of olive trees, vines, date trees, and etc. Okay. And then we're going to call it for the night right here at page 157. A 2-hour show, I think, is quite all right from where we are on 157. It's all the way down. We got to get to 167. There's 10 pages. There's 10 pages in this chapter. So we'll probably get through 10 pages next time. Next time I'll commit to a nice strong 3 hours as I usually do, but I don't need every single one of these to be a 3-hour show. All right. Thank you guys so much. You have a killer night. Thank you for tuning in. And yeah, I'll probably see you tomorrow.